This is a fully working Afterburner arcade machine. It looks incredible and plays perfectly, so on first sight it should be good to go, right? Well, the more I play it, the more I notice several things that make it feel off. Nothing dramatic or broken, but once you notice them, they are very distracting. Right off the bat, the side art is missing. Not only that, but the fan is also extremely loud. And finally, the game is in German, not in English. So in this video, I'm fixing everything. And honestly, the simplest change made the biggest difference.
Before diving in with the most impactful fix, let's take a closer look at the current state of the machine. This is an upright Afterburner made in 1987 by Sega. The game lets you control an F-14 fighter jet. It features a flight stick with rumble, a throttle lever and flashing lights when you lock onto an enemy. It's action-packed gameplay and was inspired by the success of the movie Top Gun, which was released just a year earlier. Now, the cabinet is beautiful as it is, but something very important is missing. As you can see, compared to another Afterburner, it has no side art. This has a huge impact on how the game looks and feels. Artwork is always designed to grab people's attention and pull players in. These black sides, however, are incredibly boring by comparison. The game obviously works, but it loses some of its presence. Originally, Afterburner cabinets had bold fighter jet artwork to really sell the theme of the game. So let's bring it back to life. I ordered new decals from Arcade Art Repro, which sells reproduction artwork for various old-school arcade cabinets. They're not a sponsor, but I can highly recommend them, as the quality of the decals I received is great. And they are located in the Netherlands, right around the corner. Applying decals like this is a one-shot operation. If it goes on crooked, there's basically no fixing it. I like to remove most of the excess material first, while leaving a small border, so it's easier to handle the large sticker. When applying decals, it's important to have a clean application surface. I like to clean with a product similar to naphtha. Using some small clamps, I then position the decal onto the machine, making sure the artwork aligns nicely. It's a good idea to double check this, as with the dry application method I'm using, I only have one shot at this.
Oh man, this looks like a total game changer already. Now let's take them down, which is always a bit scary.
I've been staring at these blank sides for months, so this better look good. With the decal in place, I like to cut off a small part of the backing on one end and stick the first part down. This should keep everything in place and provides a nice place to start. Using the squeegee, I apply a good amount of pressure to remove any bubbles and make sure the decal sticks down well. Next, I can slowly peel back more of the decal's backing and work my way down with the squeegee, making sure no bubbles form. With one side done, this can be repeated on the other, of course. While cleaning, I spotted something interesting though. You can barely make out the difference in dirt on this side of the machine. The edge is just a little dirtier than the middle. So at some point, the machine must have had decals. I wonder why someone would remove them. This side is of course handled exactly the same as the other one, positioning the decal and sticking it down. And now for the big reveal. What an amazing difference this makes. The side art for this game looks incredible and really adds to the jet fighter theme. It screams out cool flying action now and really draws the attention. If you enjoy this kind of arcade content, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next project. Taking a closer look, the decals really are high quality. All the details are really crisp. It's amazing how such a simple change makes such a big difference to the overall impression of the game.
Now that the decals are applied, it's time for the next problem. This one will be a bit more technical and also a bit more complex, but let me show you what's wrong.
It's not that easy to spot at first, but once you notice it, it's blaringly obvious. The game is not in English, it's in German. This bothers me way more than it should, so let's figure out a solution. I thought this was going to be easy, but it wasn't. I checked the manual, hoping there would be a language setting somewhere, but there isn't. Searching around online reveals that there are actually separate German and English ROMs for this game. ROMs are basically little chips that contain part of the game's code. If I want this game in English, I'll need to replace the ROMs that contain the German version on the game's PCB. The question is, which ones? The game PCB has dozens. So let's open up the cabinet. I always love this site and marvel at how they made this game almost 40 years ago. The interior is a bit dirty, but looks to be in perfect condition. The basics are mostly the same for arcades. Power supply on the bottom and then a huge game PCB on the side. For Afterburner, Sega invented what they called the X-board, a PCB with a CPU, graphics unit, sound chips and memory. Basically a dedicated computer to run this game. It was the third entry in Sega's Super Scalar series. after the hardware made for Hang-On and Outrun. These were revolutionary systems that achieved simulated 3D graphics by rotating and scaling 2D sprites in a time before the modern way of real 3D polygons existed. Truly fascinating how programmers inventively got around the limitations of hardware at the time. Now the next question is, which ROMs actually contain the language data? Comparing the German and English ROM files shows that only 2 chips are different, IC58 and IC63. So those are the ones I need to replace. This is a perfect job for my awesome open source ROM programmer, the Relatively Universal ROM Programmer by Anders B. Nielsen. I already used this programmer in previous videos, like the Pac-Man restoration. Basically, it's a small PCB that fits on top of an Arduino Uno and allows reading and writing all kinds of ROMs just as well as way more expensive off-the-shelf programmers. It's super cheap and can be bought from Anders' shop imania.tk, or can be ordered incredibly easily from a PCB manufacturer like the sponsor of this video, JLC PCB. I have ordered multiple PCBs from them before they even sponsored any of my videos, and I can definitely say they provide high quality PCBs for a low price and fast turnaround of up to 24 hours. The ordering process is a piece of cake. All necessary files can be downloaded from the programmer GitHub repo, and the Gerber file can be uploaded to JLC PCB's website. PCB assembly is also easily enabled, so JLC PCB will solder all SMD components onto the PCB for you. You just need to upload the additional BOM and CPL file so they know which components to place where. Make sure all the components are in the right place and have the correct rotation, and you're ready to go. New customers can order 1 to 8 layer PCBs for as low as $2. And they currently have a promotion for a $30 off coupon for 6 layer PCBs. Check out the description for coupons. Using the manual, I can locate IC58 and 63 on the board. With a prying tool, I carefully wiggle the ICs off of the PCB, making sure I don't damage any of the legs. I always prefer burning a new set of ROMs and keeping the original ones, just in case something goes wrong. But of course, it couldn't be that simple. These ROMs are a very unusual non-YEDEC type, which most programmers don't even support. So once again, I need to make an adapter to swap some pins around. Using 2 IC sockets, it's possible to reroute the required pins and make the ROMs compatible with my programmer. I ordered some replacement ROMs online and tried to erase them with UV light so they could be reprogrammed. But no matter how long I left them in the eraser, the data wouldn't clear.
So these chips don't seem to be working. It may be a counterfeit by a scammy seller on eBay. Luckily, there are multiple chips from different manufacturers with the same specifications that can replace the original chip that was in there. So let's find a replacement that hopefully does work.
This time I ordered another brand of chip from a seller in Poland. Let's hope this seller can be trusted. While researching the ROMs, I discovered something unexpected. Someone actually improved the original game code with multiple extra features and bug fixes. I'll look into it when the new chips arrive. While waiting for those, let's tackle the next issue.
Alright, for the next problem, I'm just gonna let the video speak for itself. Yeah, this fan is pretty loud. Way too loud to put in any kind of a calm environment. So let's take a look and try to fix the issue.
It's loud, but that makes me curious. How loud is it exactly? Well, using my sound meter to get an exact measurement, it seems to fluctuate around 68 decibels. That's about the same loudness as a vacuum cleaner or heavy traffic, all the time. I don't know about you, but I'm not particularly a fan of having a continuously switched on vacuum next to me constantly. That does make me wonder, why was a big and loud fan like this even necessary in a video game cabinet? Well, I have a suspicion as to why, but I need to open up the front of the machine for that. Luckily, the entire control panel opens up, revealing a massive mechanism on the inside. This entire block is attached to the flight stick and is responsible for allowing the stick to tilt up and down and left and right. It's a complex combination of cogwheels, springs, bearings and wires to make this all possible, but there's one special thing that adds an extra dimension to the complexity. And that's the fact that the flight stick vibrates. And not just a little bit. The entire flight stick assembly gets shaken back and forth by a heavy-duty motor. That's why this game was called a Taycan motion simulator game, roughly translating to bodily sensation or experience games. It was the term used by Sega for their deluxe sit-down games that featured entire moving cabinets. This was pretty impressive at the time, as the sit-down version of Afterburner features an entire cockpit with hydraulics that moves the chair in sync with the game's action. Other examples of Taycan games are Hang-On with an entire motorbike to sit on, and Outrun, which has a steering wheel with rumble and a moving car cockpit. This upright afterburner cabinet is toned down a bit compared to the sit-down version, but the flight stick's rumble is seriously impressive. Now, why am I telling you all this? Well, my guess for why that loud fan is necessary is that the motor and the accompanying electronics that shake the flight stick generate quite a lot of heat, as a lot of weight has to be moved quickly. So let's spring into action now and try to fix that loud, annoying fan. There's barely any info on the internet about this old fan model, but after some digging I did find a manual that says it should push about 100 CFM, which tells you how much air it can move in a certain time frame. I want to find a fan that moves an equal amount of air, but a lot more quietly. This one is decently priced. It promises only 32 dB, which is about as loud as whispering or a quiet library. It also moves about 70 CFM, which is about 30% less than the original fan, but I think it will be more than enough. Now that it has arrived, I can finally install it. The fan doesn't have these prongs like the original fan, but instead two bare wires. Luckily, I can just crimp on the connectors and plug the fan back into the cabinet. A quick test to verify everything works before putting it all together is always a good idea as well. This new fan doesn't have threaded holes like the old fan has, so I can't use the same screws to attach the grill. But zip ties to the rescue. A perfectly capable solution for now. Finally, the fan and grill can be screwed back into the cabinet. Now this is a lot better. Although it's still noticeable, it's a lot quieter than the previous fan. The new fan only generates about 55 dB of noise. That might not feel like a big difference, but decibel is a logarithmic scale. So the difference between two numbers is exponential. The old fan sat at about 70 dB, so that's 15 decibels of difference, which is perceived as about 3 times louder. 55 dB is about as loud as a gentle hum of a refrigerator or a moderately quiet office space. A lot better than a vacuum cleaner. However, 55 dB is quite a way off of the fan's promised 32 decibels. I thought it could be due to air being pushed through the grill, but some quick testing without the grill showed the fan's noise level at around the same 55 dB. So I don't think I can get quieter than this. While sorting out the quieter fan, the new ROM chips arrived. Luckily, these don't seem to be counterfeit, and I can burn the original English ROMs onto them just fine. Now, with the new ROMs burnt, it's time to put them into the PCB and see if they work. I slot them into the correct slots, slide the PCB back into the cabinet and connect everything up again. So now, let's turn on the game. Oh yeah, it's working. Insert coin. That was German before. Not only has the insert coin text now changed to English, the stage text at the bottom of the screen and the big continue play screen also changed. Perfect. The game is now in English, but there's one last annoyance I want to fix. I don't want to insert coins all the time to play. I just want to press start and go. Luckily, like most arcades, this can be configured using the dip switches. These tiny switches on the game's PCB allow configuring multiple settings, as explained in the manual. For free play, all dips in the A bank should be switched to on. The game is now set to free play, but when pressing start, nothing happens. Turns out the free play doesn't even work. I guess the developers must have been in a bit of a rush and skipped a few features. One option for free play is keep the credit button that's currently here, but I really don't like it. Luckily, I have found a solution. And that's where Afterburner Enhanced Edition comes in. It's the modified game code I spoke about earlier. Someone decided to fix all the issues in the original game code and add multiple new features as well. For example, high scores are now retained when powering off the arcade. This annoying rocket explosion sound is removed from the attract mode, a selectable starting stage is added, and most importantly, a working free play mode is implemented. Also, it adds 2 extra songs to the game that were omitted in the original game and almost lost to time. When porting Afterburner to the 3DS, these lost tracks were recovered from the original game data. If you're interested, I'll leave a link in the description to Chris White's website, the creator of this ROM upgrade. These upgraded ROMs are inserted into the PCB just like before. Nice, now it works. Awesome! And there it is, the ultimate Afterburner arcade. The cabinet now has the artwork it always deserved, the fan is finally a lot quieter, and the game now runs as it should. This Afterburner finally feels complete. If you liked this video, please leave a like, comment and subscribe to my channel for any future projects.
Also, check out one of the recommended videos on screen now, I'm sure you'll like it.